This is the Marvel Masterworks Vidcast, True Believers, where we cover all of the events in the Marvel Universe, from the wanderings of the Green Goliath, to the chaotic offices of the Daily Bugle, to the grim alleyways of Hell's Kitchen, to the top of Avengers Tower, with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of the Marvel Masterworks Vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam. With me is my co-host, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, comic book fans? It's the podcast you can listen to by Moonlight. It's Multiverse Musings, and we're talking about Moon Knight.
And we have a special guest to help us do that. Big-time Moon Knight fan. So, Donnie, I'll throw it over to you to give your one of your patented introductions.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and beings of the Omniverse, please welcome to Multiverse Musings, the host of Gathering of the Geeks. This is Chris Evans!
That was awesome.
There you go. That's,
I don't even know how to follow that up. That was awesome.
Feel free to use that as your answering machine, tone, whatever you want to do with it. Go for it. We can clip it up for you.
That needs to be on Cameo with that.
I'm telling you, you should do that and make some money off of it, Donnie.
Yeah.
Intros for people on Cameo. What do you think about that?
That's awesome.
But Chris, how are you? Thank you for joining us. It's good to have you. I know that we've talked via social media about Moon Knight, and you're a big fan of that. I also had the pleasure of being on a live stream with Chris for the boys over at the Vigilante 1939 podcast, and the build up to Spider-Man No Way Home, and that was fun to do.
That was fun. That was a good time. The boys always do good stuff over there.
Right. So it was the first time I got to chat with you, and then I thought let's see if we can get him on our show, and then we started talking about ideas. Moon Knight came up, and here we are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you want to plug, we'll let you plug it later. But if you want to plug it now, plug your video podcast, your YouTube show, whatever you want to plug along the way. Go for it. Tell us a bit about yourself for the audience that may not know who you are.
Cool. I'm just kind of like an average guy. I like comics. I like movies, and I like to tweet about them. I like to tweet a lot of random bullshit too. That's what's on my Twitter mostly. But mainly I love superhero stuff. And Moon Knight, I'm glad you guys brought me on for that. Moon Knight is one of my favorites. And he's just one of those characters I never thought I'd see on film in any capacity. So seeing him is really special to me. And so that's part of my main interest. And I'll plug the other stuff later.
Cool. Yeah, I guess since, talking about Moon Knight, for me, I've always had when I came back into comics around 03, 04, whatever it was, and a couple of years preceding that, I had always seen Moon Knight whenever I'd go into the shop and kind of picking up my books, and I had a passing interest in the character, but it was always, every time I had an inkling to sort of dive in and try and read the character, it was always in the middle of a run, and it's like, I hate starting, partially the way through. Yes, I know there's trades and graphic novels and hardcovers and such, but I'm the kind of guy that if I can, I like to get in on the ground floor. And so it was always bad timing for me with when do I start Moon Knight? And then
it's had a lot of starts and stops. This is volume 9, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, right.
It might be because every couple of years they give it to a new writer. A new writer does his thing, and then he ends up in some kind of event. Then we get another reboot.
Yeah. It's like, can we just continue? Continue the numbering, damn it! I hate I get it. New number one, increased sales. I get the logic behind it, but man, I can't stand it. It's like, really.
With Moon Knight, it's kind of like it's kind of weird. But every new series is like a fresh start for the character.
Yeah.
And that's what's good about him. If you find that number one from any writer, you can just dive in and you'll be cool.
That's true too.
You just can't jump in the middle.
It plays in too with his the aspect of his character. Like you could view each each series is kind of highlighting a specific aspect of his of one of his personalities. So that's kind of, and some writers have played with that kind of aspect of it, and I do kind of like that, even though having 45 number ones is a little frustrating along the way.
Well, I remember one series that went to the direct market, like just the comic shops. It was like a gimmick in the 90s, and it only lasted 6 issues because they thought, oh, well, people will go to the shops and just get this. Well, they took it off the stands, and so nobody knew it was there, and so nobody bought it.
So Donnie, what's your kind of fandom in terms of with Moon Knight?
I remember Moon Knight a lot from the West Coast Avengers, and I always liked Moon Knight because I like, werewolves and vampires and kind of, monsters and vigilantes that stalk the night. And so Moon Knight's somebody that I gravitated to, even though this was the first time in quite a while that I went back to read a solo series. So I was happy to go back and reacquaint myself with the character. So
nice, yeah. Yeah, as I said, I'm fairly recent, so I mean, the most reading I've done before this 6-issue stint so far that I've done with Moon Knight is he was recently in a story arc in the Avengers where he battled the team. That's kind of referenced in this series as well. But that was my real stint with a character that was more than just a passing. Okay, well, he looks cool. The general backstory is cool, which is what that's pretty much what I knew before diving in. So,
and the love interest that I remember him with actually makes an appearance in this issue or these issues. Yes.
Okay.
So that was familiar to me. I was like, hey, there she is. So we'll talk about that in a little while.
So Chris, when did you when was your entry point into Moon Knight as a character?
Well, I didn't, as much as I love comics and superheroes and stuff growing up, I never actually read comics until about 2004, 2005-ish. And that happened to be when I think the Bendis run came out in 2006.
Yeah.
So I happened to catch that at the start. And a friend of mine was like, hey, you'll probably like this. I was like, well, who's Moon Knight? And I read it, and that's the one that really hooked me on the character because, first of all, it was wild. That's the book where Moon Knight believes he's an Avenger and he has Spider-Man and Wolverine with him at all times.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he doesn't, he built a web shooter and a glove with a claw in the hand. Right. And he thinks he's fighting with them, but he's not. Right. So that's the issue that hooked me. And from there, I just read most of anything Moon Knight I could find. Like Vengeance of Moon Knight, which is not the best, but it's fun. The Lemire stuff is very interesting. I love the new run. I think Jed McKay just does a fantastic job of blending everything that's cool about the character into one book.
Yeah. Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah. I like you mentioned the Bendis run. I remember seeing, some of the issues at the shop, and the art really grabbed me because I think it was it Brian Hitch? Was it Brian Hitch?
Alex Maleev.
Okay, but I think Hitch was doing the covers, maybe.
Maybe.
That's what I was seeing, because I remember seeing his art, and it was like, oh wow, that art is pretty awesome. But yeah, so that's it seems like we Donnie, you remember him from the a few decades ago, and Chris is a little bit more recent, and I'm the fresh newbie in this situation. So it's
welcome.
It's kind of cool. But all right, so before we dive into the 6 issues, like Chris alluded to earlier, we are getting Moon Knight in live action in the form of a Disney Plus series, and he will be played by Oscar Isaac. And we, before this, luckily we waited, and we now have a trailer to discuss, a full trailer, not just a teaser or a teaser for the teaser, which is insane in and of itself that studios do teasers for a teaser. But anyway, we actually have a full trailer. So what do you guys think? Chris, we'll throw it over to you. What are your thoughts on this trailer?
Do you guys have a language filter on here, or am I allowed to say whatever?
try not to swear if you can avoid it.
We try to avoid dropping F-bombs and things like that, but
I lost my stuff.
Okay. Good man.
From beginning to end, I just lost it. I love the idea of Oscar Isaac in the role that was before, and then seeing him actually get to do what he's doing and hearing the accent, which threw me off at first, because Stephen Grant is not English, but it works, I think, for what they're doing. The glimpses that we see, like like seeing Khonshu was a huge deal. Like, I didn't think we were getting Khonshu. I'm shocked we're getting Khonshu. And then the glimpse of the suit that we see, him beating the crap out of I think that's a jackal. I know a lot of people think it's a werewolf, but it could go either way. I think it's a jackal.
Okay.
And then just the little bits of lore that they're sprinkling in, and the hints that we see. Like when he's in front of that mirror and you see the reflection and they watch him leave the room, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's so in line with the character and the way he thinks. It's just cool. I really love that trailer.
Oh, yeah. Donnie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I like the fact that it's my remembering. It's my the memories I have is that initially the Stephen Grant and the Jake Lockley personas, it was kind of ambiguous as to whether they were actually a manifestation of his mental illness because he was using them initially, and then eventually it became like more and more established that he did have dissociative identity disorder and that was a manifestation of that. It was even ambiguous at one point as to whether Khonshu was, actually real or not. So I do remember that correctly. But I like the fact that they're not afraid to deal with, again, dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personalities, kind of what the Hulk has, that they're going to delve into that. And that can be a little messy and a little complicated, but I like it because it's going to separate Moon Knight from some of the other characters that we've seen already.
Yeah, no, I was actually, like you said, quite sure. I was, the idea of this Disney Plus series was intriguing, obviously, and cool that we're getting him in live action. But I also questioned, like, well, how far are they going to go with the dissociative identity disorder? Because, it still is Disney, and it's like, they whenever they can, they keep things very, very, very kosher, very easy, very kid friendly. You know what I mean? So it's like, how far are they going to dive into this? And they seem like they're going full-fledged into it. Chris, you pointed out the accent. That was a little jarring at first because I'm like, I mean, okay, fair enough. I'm only hearing about Stephen Grant now in this current series. So I had no preconceived notion of, well, is he English? Is he not? But of course, when I'm reading the book and they're mentioning Stephen Grant, I'm not switching my voice into an English accent because I just sound like me. It's like, same when I read Batman. I don't try to sound like Kevin Conroy.
Oh, I do.
God forbid. Well, I wish I could.
I'll do that.
I wish I could because I could make some money on Cameo, like you were saying, but or Christian Bale, because then my throat would be killing me. But
where's the trigger?
Yeah, but exactly. But so I never had this frame of reference for, okay, let's play him as English. So it was jarring in the sense that I don't think I've ever heard Oscar Isaac sound like that. But that's a good thing because. For me, it's like him having been in Star Wars and having played Apocalypse, under all that makeup anyway, that was something else already. I think having that distinctive voice for that version of the character is good. It allows me to separate him from the other performances that I've seen him in, because he is more like, he's not a huge A-list celebrity, but he's well known enough that his face. So you have to be able to separate.
He's got skills. I think he's going to do very well.
Absolutely. He's very talented. Absolutely.
He's known for quality, I think. Like, he's not A-list, I don't think, but when you see him in something, he's quality. Like, even in something like Dune, where it's it's a big sci-fi action piece, he's one of the best parts of it.
Yeah. No, he's a top-notch actor for sure. So I have no doubts about.
He's a guy who can bring the gravitas too, because this is going to have many times when, it can't be campy at all, where they're not going to be able to use humor. And he's the kind of guy who can bring that kind of believability and seriousness when he needs to.
Right.
So,
and even with like you were talking about, they can't really lean into too much humor, but there are moments in the trailer when, like in the elevator when he's thinking,
oh yeah, they just have to pick and choose. Yeah,
he's thinking Moon Knight's going to come through that. You see the leg, right? But then it's the old lady that comes through, and he's like, "Oh, I lost my whatever he said."
My contact.
Contact.
Yeah.
And that gets a chuckle. That's enough for me.
And she was like, "Oh, I hope you find it." And
Yeah.
she wanted to be anywhere else except in that elevator.
Yeah.
The Stevie thing was funny too.
Yeah,
Stevie,
yeah.
it's
Right.
Steven.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't need, little comments like that. As long as they get a chuckle out of me, I'm good. Like, I don't need purposely, let's stop and make a joke here. It's insert joke here, insert joke there. Like some of the Marvel films have been accused of doing, at times. So I like the dosage of humor here. The scene that you talked about with him beating up, whether it's a jackal or a werewolf, that was awesome. I'm like, okay, this is like, I don't want to compare, because I know hardcore Moon Knight fans hate when you make this reference, but screw it, I kind of have to.
It's coming.
Listen, people already hate me for other reasons. Add this to the list, I don't care. But it was very.
That's another list.
Yeah.
Lists.
I say not the Multiverse Wives list, Donnie. It's a totally different list. But when he's beating up the jackal or the werewolf, it was very reminiscent of Batman. Specifically, it reminded me of the warehouse.
Oh yeah.
The way Ben Affleck was beating down on that guy. So a lot of references there. But and then the shot that really got me, it was a small shot right at the end after the title card.
Oh yeah.
Leaping from building to building, and the moon in the background. I'm like, that is an amazing shot. Like, it just looks beautiful. So.
And then it becomes the logo, the Disney logo, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a Disney moment.
I really like the look of the costume. I really, again, this should be a sort of warning, cautionary tale, whatever you want to say. When you see a costume in a still picture via a set photo, don't judge it as the be all and end all, because by the time it's shot, it's put through various filters and such, and lighting and this and that, things could look very different. And this costume looks great. And I know some people I was okay with the still shot that leaked months back, but some people were like, really, look at that, looks that doesn't look good. But it's like, haven't we learned by now that usually on set photos don't look that good? Like, case in point, here's another example. Robert Pattinson's Batman costume. Yeah, the stunt suit didn't look that flattering. Cut to all the trailers and promotional material, and now most people are singing a different tune. So it's just like, let's take the lesson, folks, and just wait it out. Like,
well, fans overreacting on the internet's just like Thanos. It's inevitable.
Right. And also, I think part of the overreaction, or just reaction to it in general, I personally loved it when I saw it. It was love at first sight for me. But I think a lot of the reaction was, this is not a traditional Moon Knight look. It is a little different. It's more Egyptian mummy type thing. Yeah. He doesn't traditionally look like this. And I actually don't even think this is a real suit. I think this is in his head.
Okay.
But that's just my own theory.
Oh,
it could be,
Interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting.
Or it could be like a prototype, too, that we see something later on in the series.
It could be.
Yeah.
Because the whole symbiote suit thing is new. That's not something.
Yeah, that was basically. I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's new. But I do think a lot of it comes from just the reaction that it's not accurate. And, I think also, you say we need to take into account that set pics are not the final image. We also need to realize not every costume can translate perfectly to live action.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I love Wolverine in yellow spandex. I don't want to see him in yellow spandex live action.
Yeah.
Right.
There's been quite a few characters. You can't do their costume direct to live action. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It just, like, to me, I think my kind of barometer for these kind of things is, when I look at the character, do I recognize him enough as the character that you're telling me that is? So, like, if I see him, do I see Moonlight or do I see, something else? And that to me, I'm like, all right, Moonlight,
It's not Mummy Man, it's Moonlight.
Yeah, it's like, there's a moon logo, that you can see the logo. I'm like, all right, okay, I'm good, but the way you said it looks more like more like a mummy, and the Egyptian angle, and it kind of makes sense in the scheme of the origin story and all that. So I did. Now that you referenced that and I picked up on it, that's a good pull. I dig that. And I know people hate the comparison to Batman, but I think more so what I liken him to is, if I was going to sort of reference his origin with another DC character, I think he'd be closer to Hawkman in the sense that the multiple lives, the Egyptian aspect of it. It's in a little bit in line with that. Yeah, the vigilante aspect is more Batman, obviously, but I think there's what attracted me to him was that that Egyptian backstory is fascinating and the whole 9 yards. So I mean, there are inevitable comparisons, but they're completely they're so different. It's night and day. You know what I mean? So it's.
To be fair though, like if someone were to ask me who would you compare Moon Knight to, I would also say Batman.
Yeah.
But also when you say Batman, that gets people more interested automatically.
Yeah, but that's
like,
what I mean.
Oh, it's like Batman? Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Now, whether he is or he isn't, that's up for debate. There are similarities.
Of course.
Especially when you take in the millionaire version of Stephen Grant.
Right.
Who funds the Moon Knight stuff, which is a whole other thing because one personality funds another personality. It's amazing. But when you take that into account,
you compare yourself unknowingly. It's like,
right. They are more similar. So, but this version I think is going to be maybe more like street Batman if we had to compare it. Right. Maybe like we're getting with Pattinson, just going nuts on people.
Right. Yeah, and to me, it's like you said, making that comparison to somebody who's just trying to get into Moon Knight to read him.
Mm-hmm.
That's only going to drive, that'll drive people towards the character, which is never a bad thing. Like, for example, with Green Lantern, and I know Donnie likes to, whenever we can, mention Green Lantern, obviously. But look at
these guys back here.
Yeah.
I have heard he's an enthusiast of the Emerald.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I think I think I've told this story before, but when my friend was trying to hook me into reading Green Lantern, he basically said it's kind of like, I said, well, because all I knew prior was, the guy in the Justice League cartoon with the ring. Okay, cool. And then I'm like, what else? Like, well, give me some other. And he's like, well, basically it's Superman meets Star Wars. I'm like, all right, sign me up. And I started reading. So, those kind of comparisons to compare something to a more mainstream entity is not necessarily a bad thing. If it gets somebody in the door, why not?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
and if you want to know more about Green Lantern, you can listen to the Emerald Echo podcast available right here on YouTube. That's Multiverse Musing, the Emerald Echo podcast right here on YouTube.
You knew it was going to come sooner or later. There it is.
It's helpful too because I didn't know what to read with Green Lantern, and then I read Rebirth, and that hooked me. The Jeff Johns story.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Hal standing up out of the coffin. I think that's my favorite Hal moment.
It's awesome.
Threatening Sinestro and saying, "Get away from Green Arrow and Kyle Rayner." I love that moment. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So we'll cover Rebirth eventually. We'll get there in due time.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we've talked about the trailer. We're all excited for March 30th, and of course, we'll be covering the episodes, Donnie, as we always do with the Disney Plus stuff right here on the show. So look out for those when they arrive.
Sure. We'll have to invite Chris back for some of those.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was going to suggest. We'll have to get him back for, especially maybe the premiere episode. That'd be pretty cool to.
I may show up in a Moon Knight costume, though. I warned you.
Go for it. Yeah.
Hey, that's fine with us.
I have a Mr. Knight costume on.
I like it. Yeah.
For sure. So we'll set that up. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for this awesome show, or what we hope will be an awesome show, we have the new 7 issues now, but we're going to cover the first 6 of the new series. So, Donnie, set us up. Where do we find ourselves with Moon Knight?
Well, it actually opens up with Moon Knight. We see Mr. Knight, as Chris just said, having conversations, And we see this version, my original take is that it's really beautiful, grisly in parts, but there's also a lot of sarcasm from Moon Knight. And we see like the scenes switch from, the hardcore action at night to like these introspective conversations with Moon Knight and his therapist, or Moon Knight and other characters. And so that's kind of how we see this series start to play out.
Right. Yeah.
So what were your initial impressions, Chris, of how it started?
I was impressed by it because it's normally when you see Moon Knight kind of just reflecting on anything, it's not real. Like, you think of the Lemire run, you didn't know what was going on for the entirety of that, 14 issues?
Right.
It was really hard to figure out. This one is so straightforward that it kind of surprised me. It's like, oh, okay, we're really doing this. And I like the conversations that he has, and I like the sarcasm. And I like the not a deep dive, but the dive into the origin and everything. I was just very impressed by the tone of it as well, the overall tone.
For me, I like the fact that it opened up with him taking down, vampires.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel fan. So for me, anything to do with vampires, you sign me up.
Yeah, me too.
not that I'm going to join a cult that actually thinks they're vampires, but anything aside from that. But hey, if that's your thing, go for it. But no. So I dug that, and then the whole midnight mission, and he's got an office, and people go in and ask him for help. That reminded me kind of like Angel, that kind of thing. So it's like, I'm like, oh, cool.
Angel Investigations.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, so this is cool. This is great.
And he really bears his soul to Dr. Sturman a lot.
He does.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like that. I mean, that just lent a lot of gravitas to this, that it's not just all action. It's not just fluff. It's introspection. So,
which we don't get from him.
Yeah, they're actively talking about his DID, and the reason why he's going to therapy is because that was a deal he made with the Avengers. After they kind of settled their differences, they said, okay, well, listen, you can keep doing what you're doing, but you have to go to one of our therapists and take care of whatever's going on, and so that this is the fallout from that. And I like how it's carrying over, even though it's a brand new number one. What I think this book does is it's accessible for somebody who's just starting out like me, or if you've had previous background with the character like you two.
Right, and you're coming back to it. Yeah, it's a good starting point. Yeah.
Yeah. You can also appreciate those little nods as well. So it was off to a good start for sure.
And I like the opening dynamic that you guys were talking about, where he attacks this vampire cult, but he realizes that like 4 of the passengers in the back of this vehicle, they're there against their will. And even though they're vampires, and he talks about this later on, that these are people worthy of his protection. He doesn't just go in, fist and fury and kill all the vampires, because he realizes there's a difference. So, and I also like, there was a point, and I don't remember whether it was the first issue or the second one, he talked about basically a spectrum of heroes, and Spider-Man on one end and the Punisher kind of walking the line on the other end.
Yeah.
And that he's like, I'm neither one of those extremes.
He's somewhere in the
unto
middle.
myself. Yeah.
I think that was the first issue. I like that too, and I like that it shows growth for him as a character, because normally he wouldn't have the reserve not to kill the other 4. He would have just went at it. So I like that we've seen Mark Spector grow post what happened with the Avengers and whatnot.
I like that he takes in one of the victims. She becomes his secretary or his assistant. His assistant.
Reese.
Reese.
Reese is awesome.
I love their dynamic. It is hilarious. Like, she constantly is giving him attitude and be like, like. There's one point, I can't remember what issue it is. It's later, but when she's like, "You have no friends. Like, I'm the only one." That,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm it, basically, right? It's like,
without Frenchie, he needed somebody.
yeah, absolutely.
I really like the moment when I think it was actually issue 2 where she gets the blood on her hands. I think it was they were working on was it Terry?
Soldier.
They were working Terry or
no, it was Soldier.
Soldier they were working on, and like all of a sudden she sees the blood on her glove, and she's like, it was gross. Cool. It was funny. I was like, yeah.
but then she had to run out because she's like, okay, before I do something,
right.
Also, and that's a good thing to touch on because they're dealing with Moon Knight's issues, but this is now, for lack of a better phrasing, Reese is a recently freshly turned vampire, so
right.
She's gonna have all those kind of feelings, reactions,
impulses of vampires. Yeah,
that she hasn't under control yet. So I think it was very interesting that they touched on that. I like that. I like that they went there, even though it was a quick little reference. I dug it.
What did you guys think of this? I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just saying it was cool to see something like that because Moon Knight is a lot of things, and the supernatural element is important to get that out of the way.
Yeah,
it's cool to see it.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of Moon Knight going to protect that? Well, I believe it was an apartment building from vermin and all the various vermin clones. What was your impression of that?
I thought that was really cool. I mean, at first I was like, "What is this? I've never seen this before."
Yeah.
And then the way that it happens, and we get that kind of showdown and stuff. That was really cool. I liked that a lot. It was interesting. It was different, and those things were pretty vicious looking.
Yeah, I always like when things like that happen because it reminds you that no story in the Marvel universe, except for something like whatever an Elseworld story. Elseworld's not Marvel, but this isn't taking place in a vacuum. It's part of a larger story here. And he even mentioned Spider-Man. He's like, "Oh, you're one of Spider-Man's villains."
Yeah.
So.
And even before that, when they're at the apartment and he's faced with, I have to confront older. My adversaries are taking the form of older people, so I have to be careful. I don't want he's conflicted with. I don't want to hurt older people, but. Because remember he tells, I think it was Soldier that he tells, I'm not going to hurt your mother, but basically everybody else but your mother is in for a world of hurt.
It's fair.
And that showdown, it was like that mindscape scenario where he's going into he lets him in to his mind, and that's the battle that takes place. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll let you in." He was like, "But you haven't seen anything like what's in my mind,
Right.
And the sweat thing was that was classic wacky stuff.
Yeah,
that was a little disturbing. I gotta admit, that was disturbing. I'm like,
yeah. And he just takes it in,
Yeah. When he just licked it, and it was just like, okay, yeah,
like it was nothing. This is life. I'm gonna lick this guy's sweat.
Yeah, and. No, but the visual, the art in that when they were having that that battle, the mental sort of battle was quite interesting. I really like the art and the way they played that because it was. I don't think the art has changed, but his style kind of altered a little bit in that run. And I like when an artist is capable of switching it up like that.
I also like the coloring here. I noticed that to use that much white, it's got to be, kind of frustrating that you can't probably do everything you want internally, within a figure, but they use this glowing white and contrast it with the black so often. And it looks so good because you got this kind of vibe that, Moon Knight is inhabited by this mystical power. And I really like that. So,
yeah. And there was some green in there for you too, there, Donnie. A little bit of green.
Always
down. It was kind of like
green.
space. Kind of like space too.
Yeah.
So just really quickly at the end, we see kind of, I won't say the baddie, but who is pursuing Moon Knight through the first few issues, and that's Dr. Batter. So you want to tell us a little bit about him, Chris?
I think he's a new character, actually.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with him. Maybe I'm wrong because I don't know every rogue that he's ever faced, but I think he's new. Okay. And I like that he's the anti-Moon Knight in a way.
Right. Yeah.
That is pretty cool. I like that. And he makes this statement, and I believe it's the third issue. I think it's third. That Khonshu can have two fists like anyone else.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And he is the left hand of Khonshu.
Right.
And I just think that's a really interesting thing for them to do. And it could lead to a lot of cool stories down the line. Like, we've already seen him do some cool stuff, but I think, like, the immediate reaction is, oh, that's neat. That's something we can explore.
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool. That there, like, it's almost like Moon Knight has become more aware of his, like you said, he's becoming more emotional. Like he's more reserved, and like instead of just, all right, this is a vampire or whatever, and no matter the circumstances, I'm gonna take him down. Like he's starting to think things through. Like he's not attack first, ask questions later, that kind of thing. Whereas this guy is more of that initial intent, where it's like, this is my job, this is what I'm here to do. I'm gonna take any supernatural being or enemy of Khonshu out, no matter, like, I don't care what their circumstances. So it's like the opposite, the yin yang kind of deal.
It's kind of like Moon Knight's fighting a prime version of himself in a way.
Right, yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like.
And I like that Hunter's Moon says, he's like, I'm not here to like beat you or replace you. I'm here to correct you. That was an interesting twist, because it's kind of set up as, oh, this guy's here to get Moon Knight and like maybe replace Moon Knight in the eyes of Khonshu, but that's not what happens. So
yeah, that was a really good angle for them to use, because normally you definitely would expect, okay, he just wants to take the mantle. No, he's there to teach him with some I think the term is hard love or something, tough love.
Yeah, tough love. Yeah,
he's giving him some tough love from Papa Khonshu there.
And I like the fact that they even differentiated the fact that, Hunter's Moon looks at him and he was like, you don't fight the way, a servant of Khonshu would. He's like, you fight like an animal, you're vicious. Yeah. That's what we saw in the trailer, that it was somebody who just cut loose. It wasn't like the most fluid thing that, and I'm sure that we'll see more of that.
Matrix, but it wasn't wire fool. It was
but that Mark Spector is aggressive in the way he fights. So
yeah.
He's a brawler.
I just found it interesting because it's like, when he refers to himself, okay, you're the right hand of Khonshu, I'm the left hand. I'm like, wait a minute, why does the left hand have to be the quote unquote baddie in this situation?
Right.
I'm left-handed. I'm offended.
Right. Just like with Sinestro,
I get screwed in either universe. See that?
Well, at least Hunter's Moon looks cool, though. There's that.
Yeah.
That is true.
He's got a cool costume.
Right.
So that means I got to get a cool costume and I got to grow my mustache like Sinestro.
I'm trying to grow mine like Mr. Sinister, so.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. So, and speaking of character growth, I like later on there's a conversation between Moon Knight and Reese, and she was like, why didn't you kill me for being a vampire when you first met me? And he was like, because I shouldn't be out here judging people for who they are, but by what they do.
Yeah.
Again, drawing that distinction between the vampire cult and the people that they had, captured against their will. So,
yeah.
And to make another comparison to Batman, real quick. And Batman Begins, there's that famous line, it's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
Yeah.
Moon Knight's on that level now, so
he's
Batman.
That's true. Yeah.
He's Batman. There you go.
And Rachel was like, Bruce?
Right. He's Batman. But I do love that line a lot when he delivers that. That's really cool. And what follows that is really, really good too. When he just tracks Hunter's Moon down at Midnight Mission, and he beats the crap out of him.
Yeah, I think when he crashes through the window.
Oh yeah, that was an awesome visual.
It was. All the visuals in this new run have just been spectacular.
Yeah. Who's the artist on the book, Donnie?
I can't remember. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now. So. It was
have
somebody that I like, though, now that I think about it.
I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but I think it's Alessandro Cappucci?
Okay, yeah.
Cappucci?
That's who I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, no, the art is fantastic. It's great. Throughout all 6 issues, I absolutely love the art. It was stunning.
And like I said, I want to say, I think that the color is good, too. The color, it
shout
was
out to color.
This wasn't something that color is very important here with a character like this, you know, and so yeah, I just thought it worked really
But
well.
you have a character, and it's harder because the guy's wearing predominantly white. So
yeah.
It's like, you know.
It's very atmospheric and it's moody, and it's not like too dark. Like I'm not reading a Frank Miller book. It's not too dark, but it's not too light. It's not like we're reading Spider-Man. What was it called? Full Stop, when he had the white suit on.
Yeah.
It's it works. It's a perfect I think middle ground.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the art is just top notch. You know, work. All 6 issues, for sure.
Oh, and again, I like the character development that later on we see that he's talking with Sturman, and he says, you know, she asks, "Why do you wear the mask?"
Oh yeah.
I really like that moment. He's like, "Because no one needs Mark Spector. I'd rather be anyone else but Mark Spector."
Yeah.
So this is, you know, somebody dealing with self-loathing here. It's not just somebody who is out and say, oh, you know, all I've got to do is go out and crush the bad guys and I'll be fine. This is somebody who is really at war with themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and I have talked about that, Adam, before with Eddie Brock.
Yeah,
there was a lot of that early on. So
they're not. He's not very fond of his.
Yeah.
Like what he's done, and you know, it's very much about atoning for. Like you could see in him, there's a lot of I gotta atone for my past mistakes, my past sins, and that to what I was speaking about. You know, the Angel reference earlier. That also too is very much like Angel, right? In the sense that that's his whole. For Angel, it's I gotta get. That's the way to get my soul back. Kind of deal. You know, for Moonlight, it's a different thing entirely, but that similarity remains. So I do like that angle. It's very interesting and adds another layer to the character, and allows you to tell a different kind of story. Like I like the fact that we even got just through dialogue, but backstory with his father.
Right.
Yeah.
That was something huge that I remember, that his father was a rabbi, and that he's kind of at war. That's another part of himself that he's at war with, because his father obviously had a very strong belief system, and here he is relying on a God that's not his father's God.
Yeah.
In the conversation they had about, I forgot the exact verbiage they used, but it came down to, you left, you know, your Jewish stuff aside and you accepted a new God. And the way he talked about that was really cool too. The way they went into detail, because all the Stern sessions are really well done. I think that's some of the best written stuff in the whole series so far.
Yeah, I agree.
The conversations and the deeper looks into Spector's mind and his life, and talking about his father, even mentioning Bushman for that brief moment.
Yeah,
it's just great stuff.
Yeah, because he's talking about too, where, you know, he's saying, well, yeah, why wouldn't I leave? Why wouldn't I, you know, I accept this other God when the God of my father basically allowed our people to always be, you know, trampled on and this and that. And it's like, that is really poignant, because now we're dealing with, and I'm not of the Jewish faith, so I can't, you know, speak to this with any, you know, like literal reference points. But I can imagine some people of that faith persuasion having that sentiment of, well, what the hell? Like, why am I being, you know, faithful to you when all I've gotten is this persecution, that persecution, and everything else in between? So it's a very real emotion that the writers are putting in this fantastical character, fantastical situations. And I always like where you can imbue some realism in certain spots to these characters without it getting overly preachy. You know what I mean? There's that fine balance, and this book walks that balance perfectly. I think it does a very good job of that.
Yeah, that was some really deep stuff to think about.
Yeah.
You know, again, and you know, his relationship in this with Khonshu seems to be somewhat antagonistic. You know, he's drawing power from Khonshu. But by the way, in Khonshu, when we actually do see Khonshu, the stuff of nightmares. I mean, the way it was rendered, wow, you know. So
Yeah, it's.
But one of the things, we talked about how this, it's not a Frank Miller book. We do get to see a former love interest show up. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about that, because I'll tell you my feelings on it.
We talking about Tigra?
Yeah.
So when Tigra showed up, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. I didn't mind it, but I was like, okay, we can do this, I guess. I'd rather see Marlene, but okay.
Yep. I understand that. I just love the fact that they had just talked about his mask, and here she comes in. She's like, "Oh, hey, baby, let me see your eyes," and tries to take the mask off. And he's like, "Get off me!"
It's so
it's
different.
funny because you guys are having specific reactions, and I'm like, I don't know who this is, but I'll roll with it because apparently she's there.
Oh, she's been around a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, they were West Coast Avengers together and some other stuff, but she's a cool character, and their chemistry is different than he has with other characters.
I love the way it was written, like that whole segment where she comes in, and she instantly kind of, this is the wrong word, but you'll get what I'm saying. She kind of sides with Reese, and they're kind of teaming up to take jabs at Mark, and I'm like, and he's like, I'm surrounded by
horrible women.
And I was dying of laughter. I was like, oh, that's too good.
She kind of reminds me in this one kind of like Mary Jane, like a tiger version of Mary Jane.
Yeah, because she has that, that she walks in and she's got that presence.
She owns the place.
That model presence that, It was, but I love the dynamic. Again, it's like all the action and the fighting is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really the character interactions that make this book very unique and very special, I think.
Yeah, and they have a moment, I think it's toward the end of that issue, where Mark does take off the mask for her.
Yeah.
And he explains, I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. I don't want to see what's underneath the mask. And that just drives the point home. He does not like himself anymore. He realizes all the mistakes he's made. He does not want to be a part of that anymore.
Yeah. And it's cool because, he rests his head on her shoulder, and it's like, you see how kind of, as much as they build him up as this to the villains he pursues, to the evil he pursues, he is this very formidable, intimidating figure. Mm. But then you can see him in such a vulnerable situation like that. It's very, the dichotomy is quite impressive of the two perspectives that we're getting of this character.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's issue number 5 where we see Moon Knight go to. We initially have one impression of Soldier, but later on we see that he's actually chained up, and a bomb's getting ready to explode, and Moon Knight goes to help him, and we see that it's actually Zodiac who has chained Soldier up. And here is again Moon Knight risking himself under this scenario, and I thought that was really cool. What do you think, Chris?
I thought that was a very cool scenario because it's one of those things where you don't think that would be a thing. Like, I didn't think, Soldier is not who he seems.
Yeah.
That didn't cross my mind. I was like, okay, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's Soldier from the Block, whatever. Yeah. And then the way it's handled with
Jenny from the Block, but anyway.
I mean, similar. They're in New York. I think they're in Brooklyn too. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting scenario because you don't expect that. Like, you just think, okay, Soldier's this all-American guy, I guess. And then to see him chained and see the fun. But also what really caught me was the Zodiac stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
because I did not see coming whatsoever.
Yeah. That was
in a way,
twist. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way that was kind of the back of my mind. Because the emotional stuff kind of takes precedent for me in this book. So the Zodiac stuff is always in the background, Yeah. So to see it fully realized in this issue, it was pretty special.
And that's how I think that's the beauty of the twists that they pull, is because they lure you away from thinking about those characters with all the character emotional stuff that Moon Knight's going through. And then, boom, they hit you with these surprises, and it's like, oh, wow, that was actually shocking. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't telegraph that. Whereas in some books, you could telegraph the twist coming a mile away.
Right. And I like how issue 6 opens up. Moon Knight's taking a beating from Zodiac.
Yeah.
Because he's disoriented from the explosion, and who Reese goes to help Moon Knight. Mm. That's not who I would have thought would play out here.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But he was helpful.
Kind of. Which it's again, I'm speaking of Hunter's Moon. So yeah. Yeah,
that was I like seeing him kind of not reconcile with Moon Knight, but no, okay, you are my brother of Khonshu. Yeah. Right. I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah. And he even says, I'm not sure I like you yet, but you're my brother still. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Their relationship, I like the way it's growing, because at first, it's very antagonistic, but then I think in that issue, we see it change a little bit, and I'd like to see where it's going to continue to go. I don't think we're going to get like super Khonshu brothers or something, but we'll see.
No, but the occasional team up, I think, could happen, but while keeping that guarded animosity between the two. I mean, they're not going to be going out for coffee and talking about sports anytime soon. But
they should totally call the title that for a while: Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu Brothers, or Super Khonshu Brothers, whatever.
I would read it.
Video game pending.
I'd read that.
Oh, for sure. And then the scene where the part of the sort of the villain plot that kind of got me, that I found was really interesting, was I think it was an issue before. I think it was issue 5 or maybe it was 4, but when they were siphoning the money out of his account to control him and get him to do it.
Right, yeah.
Like, you rarely see that from a villain. Usually, and I'm talking about both Marvel and DC, usually it's, I've got to kill the hero because of X, Y, and Z. Where here, they're like, screw that. I'm going to hit him where it hurts the most. Not by killing him, but by taking what funds his superheroics away, which is his money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And so
that was an interesting angle, and I like that it also widened the universe a little bit, because like you mentioned earlier, Donnie, this takes place in the Marvel universe. This is not like some kind of Elseworld or whatever. Yeah. This takes place in, because we see Jigsaw. They're talking about Frank Castle.
Yeah.
I love seeing that. The interconnectivity is so well done, and it's not like...
Was it an 8-ball?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 8-ball.
Yeah.
I like seeing that interconnectivity and the way they don't use it as a crutch. They use it as a accent.
Mm-hmm. Good way to put that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not like, okay, now that you've read this line of dialogue and you see that it's tied in with the Punisher character, go read 45 issues of Punisher. No, it's like,
right. Read Welcome Back, Frank.
Not that I'm opposed to reading Punisher. I'm just saying that can be sometimes daunting, as a reader. Like, for example, here's the way it was done wrong, that I think, and for me to say that a Batman book did something wrong is highly irregular. But there was Death of the Family, not the one from the 80s, the one that...
The Snyder one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was like 45 friggin' tie-ins, and it's like on the corner of the right-hand side of the cover, Death of the Family tie-in, and you'd buy it. So I'd buy it was a friggin' whatever. Yeah. Some book I was never reading. It's called Checkmate or whatever, just to use an example. That wasn't one of them, but let's pretend. Checkmate number 3, and you're reading for this Death in the Family tie-in, and all it is literally Joker's off in the corner hiding, listening to a conversation.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I spent $3.99 for that?
Right.
Kind of bullshit,
Yeah. Adam's ranted about this before.
but now you know.
But it's ridiculous.
And knowing's half the battle.
Right.
I like exactly. Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
Don't make me start another podcast, Donnie. But yeah, so I like the way this was done as opposed to the way that was done. So again, I'm not opposed to multi-book crossovers, but if you're going to do that, then they better have the crossover portion. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm reading it for. So I really liked the way this was done. So it was a wider universe without forcing you to hear. Now spend another $100 to catch up on it.
Or use your Marvel Unlimited subscription.
That too, yeah. And Marvel Unlimited, I actually can access that in Canada, which is nice.
Oh, you can? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
As opposed to the DC universe.
Right.
The Marvel apps are better anyway, but I'm just saying.
And now Comixology is changing, so that's a whole other thing to navigate, but I digress. Donnie, continue. Where
Well, no, we should talk a little bit about the end. Hunter's Moon is able to heal Mark Spector, not completely, but we also see that, we also see Hunter's Moon's backstory about how he became, a servant of Khonshu.
Right, yeah.
Which I thought was really, really interesting. And like I said, and like Chris said, their relationship is growing. There's not a complete resolution here. You just see them kind of say, okay, well, we're not enemies, but how are we going to work together?
Mm-hmm.
That's not completely resolved. And I like the fact that they leave you wanting a little bit more, but they establish something that is very interesting to bring you back.
And I think it would have been disingenuous if, because think about it. Hunter's Moon appears in how many, 2 of the 6 issues, maybe 3?
Yeah,
I think so.
Right. So to imagine having them start out as, wanting to kill each other, and then by the end of it, they're arm in arm, hey, let's go for marshmallows after this. That would be ridiculous. Shawarma. That would be ridiculous, from a progression standpoint. So
it wouldn't be realistic. No, not at all.
So I'm glad that their issues weren't fully resolved by the end of issue 6.
And I kind of hope they don't get resolved for a while.
Yeah.
I want them to keep this kind of chemistry, this back and forth, because it's interesting to see. Because normally, you see characters like this, and they are friends by this point.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I see what you did out there. I appreciate that. We're friends now. Yeah. I get it. That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
But this wasn't that case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like, I respect you because we're brothers in Khonshu, but that's right now. That's where it is. Like that's where the unity stands. It's very tenuous and could change at any moment, and that's the intriguing part of it.
It is
because we've seen how threatening he could be to Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
it does end up. It ends up on an upbeat note though, because we see after all this, he goes back to the Midnight Mission. And he's like
in the rubble,
and he's like, I am Moon Knight, and I'm not going anywhere. I've got something to do.
I love the fact that the images, he's sitting in his chair as if nothing is happening. He's like, all right, I'm ready for the next customer. Who needs my help?
I love it. I love it so much. It speaks volumes for the character.
It's so casual and nonchalant that it's like, all right.
It's one of the best panels, I think, just because of what it is. Like after everything that's happened, he's still there to do what he thinks is right. Yeah.
No, I gotta say, I was coming at this. This is being my first full arc of a Moon Knight story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really impressed. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah. Has there been a Mr. Knight's Marvel Legends? Because I know there's been several Moon Knights, but I looked at the Mr. Knight costume, or the suit and the mask, and I was like, that'd be a great figure,
I don't think so, because I'm also gunning for one myself.
Right, there you go. Man after my heart. Yeah.
I wasn't collecting figures when the Moon Knight figures were released.
Oh,
so
right,
I've missed out on all the cool ones they've had already.
They weren't easy. Some of them weren't easy to come by either.
That's what I heard. And now I've been looking at like $200 for a Marvel Legends. I'm like, no, I'll wait for the movie version. I'm sorry, the TV series version.
And think about this. I think I could be misremembering, but I think I read that Hot Toys and Sideshow are going to have a Moon Knight figure.
They are. Hot Toys is going to release a Moon Knight figure.
God, look, those damn. telling you, I'm already experiencing pain with Batman related stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I cannot imagine what you're going to do when you see that Sideshow Moon Knight figure, because, like I said, I've got the Hot Toys of the Sonar suit, the Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Coming. I just ordered the McFarlane, the statue you posted about the Batman.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. I was going between the black, the regular and the red one, but then I'm like, I gotta go black because it's Batman, and I like the red, I like the accent, but Batman. It's Batman. So I ordered that one, and a Michael Keaton Batman from The Flash is gonna do a hot toy of that, and there's no way in hell I'm not getting a Michael Keaton hot toy. So there goes my money for that. So I'm like, please, that's enough. I don't even have one yet, and all of a sudden I'm planning. Okay, there's 3 already, just basically waiting to be my possession. So I can just imagine you when you see that Moonlight figure when they actually release it.
Oh yeah, for me it's so yeah, I've already bought some Batman stuff myself. I got the Lego sets. I bought a Batmobile the other day that's really cool. I have some McFarlane's on order, but for Moon Knight, I am so excited for the merch, like a child. I can't wait for the Marvel Legends. I don't have any Hot Toys right now. I had one a while ago. It was the Joker DX12, but I got rid of it. So I might need that Moon Knight though. I'm just saying I might need it.
I think when you see it, because that was me. I'm like, I can't justify spending. Years ago I was like, there's no way I would ever buy one of those. And then I saw the Val Kilmer thing, and I'm like, you son of it. why do I speak? Because look at me now. Donnie, I can imagine you if they ever did a Kyle Rayner Hot Toy. You'd probably pony up the cash for that.
Well, you know how I was saving up for that statue, that XM statue, until I heard that it's not available on this continent. So
I didn't know that.
No, you can't. There's nowhere to get it. It's available only in, what is it?
Indonesia. Where is it?
Yeah, something like that. And because they're not even getting it in Europe because it's so big. Like shipping would be like $300. So you can only get it, like where I forget exactly where it was produced, but yeah. So I don't know unless somebody brings one over to the States someday.
Donnie, I think your best bet is eventually when the HBO Max Green Lantern show comes out, you'd probably get some Hot Toys of those Green Lanterns.
Hope so.
I can see a Jessica Cruz in your collection. If not Kyle. Maybe Jessica Cruz. How about that? I
might have to purge some things though, because it's getting crowded here again.
You think you might have to get some stuff out of there, but I'll come and steal some stuff. Don't worry about it, Donnie. We'll take care of it.
Merch is never ending. There's always something new.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then, sometimes, Chris, you have people in your life and you're like, I don't want to collect Masters of the Universe. And then you have a friend say, oh, you really need to. You know how awesome these things are?
Listen, stop.
They are awesome. They are awesome, though.
Stop blaming me because, listen, I had the self-control to only get 3 of them. I didn't tell you to go get the whole line. That's on you.
Now, this 2-pack is awesome.
That is awesome.
That's the Savage He-Man.
I love that line. I don't own any of them, but I like looking at them. I know that for me, that's a slippery slope. I'm not going to judge you. That's exactly what happened to me. I mean, these Mafex figures, I started by getting Mafex figures. I just wanted the Dark Knight Batman Mafex. I was like, well, I need a Joker for the Batman.
Yeah. Well,
and then you just have to match them.
I took one step down that slope, and I ended up like Chris Farley in Black Sheep. So,
last night I was contemplating as I got an email for this every month. Hot Toys update you on your order, progress or whatever. And of course, in that email, they're like, by the way, this Batman Forever statue comes with a Robin. And I'm like, stop that.
It does?
Yeah, well, stop no, you can buy, they're also selling the Chris O'Donnell.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? So it's like, stop that because I don't really want this, but with the rate my trigger finger is going lately, it might end up in my cart. And I can't afford that right now, so stop your yapping email. Tell me what you leave me alone.
Evil on me.
Leave me alone. But no, this was so I expect some merch for sure for Moonlight as the show.
Yeah, and we haven't seen many of the characters. I mean, we know Dr. Harrow's in it. I forgot that there's another villain. Is it Midnight Man that's announced already?
I think so. Yeah.
What? I think so. And Dracula's been rumored forever.
Well, my thing is, I would love for this to because I'd assume that Oscar Isaac just isn't going to be in this show. They'll probably use him elsewhere, and with Blade coming down the track, I'd love to see a team up with Moon Knight and Blade.
Yeah.
If they can ever get Ghost Rider going, that would be.
I'm hoping for a version of Midnight Suns.
Yeah, that's what I was leaning at. That would be, something that I think a movie or a show, whichever they want to do. But that would be like the supernatural kind of Avengers kind of deal, and I'd be all for that. And as a matter of fact, if they ever did a Midnight Suns book again with Moon Knight, Blade, Ghost Rider, and such, most of my Marvel is digital right now. But if they did a book like that, I'd probably put it on the physical buy pile. So Marvel, if you want my physical money, then well, I don't think they care how they get my money, as long as they get it.
They might. Yeah.
If you want me to collect physical, that's the book you need to be putting out. But no, I love this series. So usually how we do it, Chris, because this was one story arc, we rate the story out of the writing out of 5 and the art out of 5. So go ahead, give us your rating of the first arc.
Automatically, I want to say 5 out of 5 for both, but I know that's probably not. You can't give every book a perfect review. Let's say it's a 4 out of 4 for the story.
Okay.
And I'd give the same for the art, because I there's no perfect book for me, except Long Halloween, which is different.
Fair enough. That's an acceptable reaction.
Yeah. I love this run so far.
Maybe we can get him on for like a long Halloween episode.
Oh, we should do it. You know what I was thinking that I was going to mention to you after the show? We should do a couple of the books that are sort of inspirations for the Batman leading up to March, or before or after the movie. We do a couple of books that were inspired the movie. It would be something maybe we could do, but we'll talk about that. We'll schedule that later. But yeah, Donnie, well, how would you rate?
I'm gonna give the art a 5, and I'm gonna give the writing a 4.5.
Oh, we can do points too.
Yeah. You want to? Yeah.
Oh yeah, 4.5 for both. Let's do that.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the writing a 4. Really strong start, solid story, and the art was just stunningly beautiful at every turn. So I've got to give that a 5. Fantastic, and the best thing is, it ended pretty clean considering everything that happened. And yet, I was still anticipating more, and that's to me is the mark of a good first entry. So I'm all for more Moon Knight, and I can't wait to dive into the next arc. And happy to finally be covering the character on this vidcast and podcast. So, Chris, thanks for joining us again.
Yes, thanks for joining us, sir.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It was fun.
Give us, before we wrap, give us your social media plugs.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at thatchris70. But what I prefer you guys to do is check out my video podcast that I host with my buddy Emmett Davis at G of the Geeks.
Okay.
Awesome. Donnie, how can they keep up with you via social media?
You can find me on Twitter as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern.
And if you want to chat with me on social media, it's at Adam_LeesFan on Twitter. The podcast network is at MMNPDC. We also have a Facebook group, which is listed in the link below. Click it, I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, and until March 30th, when Moon Knight premieres, remember that Moon Knight is forever, from his first identity to his last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.